Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to talk about Thasmin, the relationship between the 13th Doctor and Yaz, and why I think it isn't this major victory that some of the LGBTQ community think it is. And to be fair, not all of them do either. Some of them don't agree with it either. I don't like to lump every person with the same opinion in that. But I know some of them kind of enjoy it, they like it, they think it's a huge victory for their movement. They fist punch the air over it. Here's the reason why I don't think that. I think it's actually detrimental to same-sex relationships in shows, and why, just in general, as a relationship, regardless of gender, I don't think it's I don't think it's a good thing, and that's because it is, in my opinion, a very toxic relationship. Now, I enjoyed in Legends of the Sea Devils that the Doctor addressed it, and we got to hear her side of it and why she's not for it, and it makes sense. It ties in with what the 10th Doctor said to Rose in School Reunion about how a Time Lord's lifespan is so much longer that they're practically immortal compared to a human, and that, the human dies, and that's just hurt that the Doctor has to deal with. I enjoyed that. But this relationship, every little hint at it, which really started in Flux, but you can see hints of even in Series 12, is highly toxic. Yaz is too caught up in the Doctor. Kind of like what you see like, a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old, a child, a teenager who doesn't know any better. When I saw the "What would you do" written on her hand, where she could look at it, I'm like, that is bad and toxic. She is too caught up in the Doctor. When I saw how obsessed she was with finding the Doctor in Revolution of the Daleks, when she's been stuck in the TARDIS just working on that. Here's the thing. You can't be that obsessed with someone who isn't giving these feelings back to you. If they're not giving you interested signs back, that's dangerous. That becomes creepy and stalkery, and it's inappropriate. And to the point to where it looks like Yaz is putting all of her life on hold for the Doctor. When was the last time Yaz saw her family, her grandmother? When was the last time Yaz went to work? She has a job. She's supposed to be a policeman, right? But we never see anything about her family anymore. Whereas a lot of companions in Modern Who's gone out of the way for us to meet family members and be caught up with their family. We see this all the time with Rose and Martha and Donna and Amy. You see this a lot with families, a big deal, but we never really see Yaz's family anymore. We never hear anything about her job. It's like she has given up all of this, all of her life, just to be with the Doctor. How often does she see Graham and Ryan now? And we get this implication that her and the Doctor have been traveling for a while after Series 12. Like, there always strikes me as a huge gap between the end of Series 12 and the beginning of Flux. They do have a bit of a more friendly camaraderie between them, 13 and Yaz. But it never feels like more than that on the Doctor's part. Except lately. Where, again, there's the little looks in her eyes. But it's toxic. If you know the other person is not going to have these feelings back, it becomes a very dangerous situation for you. It can stunt your emotional growth, your mental growth. It can cause you a lot of mental anguish because you're constantly worrying, do they like me? Do they care about me? Are they going to notice me? You take offense at things they say more. It's kind of like when you get into a relationship and, you can kind of joke with each other and you don't get offended by what the other person says, but the longer you're in the relationship and the more emotionally connected you get to that person, something they say might offend you a little more. You might get a little more hurt by it. You're setting yourself up for heartbreak. And here's the thing. It's not even so much... because we've seen this before. It's not because it's a same-sex relationship. It's because it's a toxic relationship. And I feel like this is not the poster child you want for an LGBTQ relationship. This is not one of those things you go, see, it can be done right in TV, because it's not being done right here, because it is a toxic relationship. We've seen this with the Doctor before. This constantly reminds me of Martha, and Martha with the 10th Doctor, which was a hetero relationship. But it has the same problem. It was a toxic relationship. The 10th Doctor was very hung up on Rose, which Martha knew. Martha would get frustrated hearing about Rose. We see her, like, in the Shakespearean Code when he brings up Rose, and she just blows the candle out. Or when the doctor runs into Jack, and Jack and her are and Jack and the doctor are talking about Rose and Utopia, and you just see Martha, good old Rose. You see how frustrated she gets with this. And one of the things I love about Martha and the doctor's relationship is that Martha realizes how toxic and bad it is for her. And that's why she leaves. The reason she leaves at the end of Last of the Time Lords is because of that. Because she realizes how bad for her that relationship is. She talks about her friend who liked this guy and he never even noticed. And I kept telling her to get out. So this is me getting out. So she was able to leave because she realized it was an unhealthy relationship. It wasn't going to go anywhere. And all it was going to do is lead to more heartache. So she left. And that helped her. Look what happened to her afterwards. She grew as a person. Martha grows a lot, I think, in Series 3, but she grows even more afterwards. Like when she shows up in Torchwood, and when she shows up in Series 4 of Doctor Who. She really grows as a character because she puts that baggage behind her. She gets engaged to one guy, who I personally think she should have married, the guy she met in the parallel universe. And then she ends up marrying Mickey, which seems a little forced, but she moves on and has other relationships, and she is able to still maintain a friendship with the Doctor. She's not hung up on that. She's able to move on and grow as a person and continue leading her life instead of being stuck in the Doctor's shadow, which is where Yaz feels. Yaz feels very much like a submissive person in a very toxic relationship. She feels very much in the Doctor's shadow, and the Doctor's not forcing her to be there. It's not like some toxic relationships where it's the dominant person's fault making someone give up all this stuff. The Doctor wouldn't want her to do that, but Yaz is doing it anyway. Yaz is giving up all of these other aspects of her life to be in a relationship that's not going to work. We know it's not going to work as an audience, especially with only one story left. And the Doctor knows it's not going to work. She's been through this. She doesn't want to lose more people. And you feel like Yaz deep down has to know it's not going to work. It's like she doesn't quite believe everything the Doctor tells her of, yes, I used to be a man. Yes, I used to be married. Yes, I used to do all this. I'm very, very old. I will outlive you. I will go on long after you are dust. And to me, that's not the poster child of what I think the LGBTQ community should want for a same-sex relationship. Not a toxic one like this. I think a better example is the gay relationship in Praxeus. I actually loved that aspect of Praxeus. I'm not a big fan of Praxeus just because the story's kind of and there's that one girl who her friend gets killed and she's like, oh no, and then she's just kind of over it for the rest of the episode. But I think the same-sex relationship between the two men, the astronaut and the other guy, is done very well. Very well. They've broken up for whatever reason, but it's obvious they still care about each other. It's obvious they still have emotions for each other. And it's obvious how much they're concerned and worried about each other. And I love that they resolve that and get back together at the end. And I love the fact they both survive. I will never forget seeing all of the stuff online where the LGBTQ community was so excited that both of them survived. They were fist punching the air about it. Rightfully so. That was handled really well, in my opinion. And that is a poster child I think you should put up of something, of a relationship like that done right. At least in my opinion. But I think with Thasmin, I really wish they hadn't even done it just because I don't like the codependence Yaz has. I don't think this has been done right. I'm not the kind of person who likes the Doctor in a relationship anyway. I don't like the 10th Doctor with Rose, for example. I've never been a big fan of the Doctor in relationships, for the most part. I like the kind of flirty nature of 11 with Clara. That's just a little flirty thing. I'm still not even on board with River, to be honest. So I didn't really care for Thasmin much anyway. But it's just the fact it feels forced, and it feels very detrimental. And to me, it's very obvious it is a toxic relationship. I thought that about Martha and 10, and I love Martha and 10. Series 3 is my favorite series of Modern Who. But even then, I knew that wasn't a good relationship, that was dangerous. And I love the fact that's why Martha left. Honestly, I think that's why Yaz should leave. I figured Yaz is either going to leave because she's going to figure this out that it's not going to happen, or else the Doctor's going to regenerate into someone completely different, and Yaz isn't going to just it isn't going to be the same for Yaz. Much like how Clara had trouble adjusting to 12. I don't like Thasmin, and it has nothing to do with it being a same-gender relationship. It's two reasons. One, I just don't like the Doctor in relationships. I prefer that more Classic Who approach. As I prefer more Classic Who, to be honest. I'm more of a Classic Who fan, while I love Classic and Modern Who. But two, I don't like that it's being portrayed in this toxic way. It feels so one-sided. And the lengths Yaz go through feel dangerous. Again, like a 15-year-old that's never been in love. You know, like when you're trying too hard, when you're all over their Facebook page, when you're standing out of their window with a boombox over your head because John Hughes really did not teach good lessons on relationships. And you're making the grand gesture. That's it, the grand gesture. You know, the grand gesture is not really a good idea, I think, for the most point, especially not if the other person is feeling it. When you're constantly trying to make these grand gestures, or when you have "What would the doctor do" written on your hand, that is bad. I would never get the first time I saw that, and I was like, I never liked that. The stuff in Series 12 didn't bother me much, but in Flux, she seems like she's just too, I have to have the doctor. It has to be the doctor. No one else. I can't live without you, doctor. I'm all out of love. I'm so lost without you. Now, Life is not an Air Supply song. I love Air Supply. Have their greatest hits. Life's not an Air Supply song. I feel like Yaz needs to be her own person. She really needs to get out from under the doctor. And I think if she gets away from the doctor, she will grow more as a person. She will go back and get her, her job, go back to her family. She will find a relationship that's right for her, like Martha did. And I can't understand why some of these people who are all for Thasmin are for it when it's obviously a toxic relationship. And the last thing I want someone to do is think, see, we finally have a nice, gay, lesbian, LGBTQ, whatever term you want to use, relationship on Doctor Who. This is a perfect example. I'm like, no, it isn't. It's not a perfect example. Praxeus is a better example. This is a toxic example. And if you think a toxic relationship is something you want on a poster celebrating the LGBT community, then I think you're a damn fool. I wouldn't want that. It's been done way better in relationships. Way better, especially these days. Way better. In TV shows, in sitcoms, again, even in Doctor Who with Praxeus. That's a much better example. Now, don't get me wrong. If you like Thasmin, fine. That's your business. I'm trying to just tell you why I don't think it's a good idea. And it has nothing to do with the gender problems. It has to do with the fact it's blatantly a toxic relationship. And it's not the Doctor's fault. And one of the things I loved about Legends of the Sea Devils is the Doctor tries to explain her reasonings. And she even admits, if it could be somebody, it would be you. That's fair. That's fine. But watching her explain her side of it and try to tell Yaz why it's not going to happen. And I'll even give the Doctor credit because she does finally broach the subject, which is something Ten never really did with Martha. Because Ten had to know. If you've seen The Infinite Quest, you know Ten knows because the thing in The Infinite Quest shows you what's your strongest desire. And she, of course, sees the 10th Doctor. And the actual 10th Doctor saw that. So he knows Martha has a thing for him. And he never brings it up. It's not until Martha brings it up when she leaves at the end. And you can see by his reaction during that conversation, he obviously knew. So I will give 13 credit over 10 here because she does broach the subject. Because maybe she can tell Yaz is hurting. And she realizes, okay, obviously Yaz is going through this. She's not going to get any better unless I talk to her about it. And so while I'm not the biggest fan of Legends of the Sea Devils, I like that. I like the fact that this Doctor, who has so much trouble opening up, so much trouble just with her friends, as we saw when she tried to talk to Graham, or when Graham tried to talk to her about the cancer, this Doctor is very closed off emotionally. She's not very sociable. She's very socially awkward. The fact she was able to have this talk with Yaz about this relationship, I think that's a big step for her. And I like that for her. But all it does is confirm to Yaz this isn't going to happen and you need to understand that. And I would love for us to just be friends forever, but it can't. Not with the type of feelings Yaz has. She's not going to be content just being friends forever. She's either going to have to get more out of that relationship, or eventually she's going to have to leave, or it's just going to be continuing anguish for her. And that's the problem with that. When you're that in love with someone that you either have to get that back at some point or else you have to leave. Even I have one of my exes where we dated for over a year, and if we ever just bumped into each other and started catching up, I don't think I could just be friends with her, because I cared about her a lot. She cared about me a lot. You know, we did care each other about a lot. We just didn't stay together in different circumstances. She actually was getting into vet school, which has been her dream since she was 6 years old, and neither one of us like distance relationships. But there's no way I think we could ever just be friends, and we know that. So even if she still lived around here, which she doesn't, she got a really nice job when she graduated. But if she ever did move back here, I don't think we would be able to hang out, because I don't think we'd be able to be just friends. Whereas a couple of my other relationships I had, now that I'm smarter and I know more, I could be just friends with, because I'm fine with, I wasn't super attached to them like Yaz is. I could go back and be friends with them. Now, just like how Martha and the doctor can be friends now, because Martha got over that. She got past that. Whereas I don't think Yaz can settle for just being friends with a doctor long term. Eventually she's gonna want more, and that is dangerous. That is dangerous in a relationship. It's a very toxic relationship. You know, a toxic relationship isn't just, you know, the dominant person verbally abusing or physically abusing the more submissive person. That's not necessarily just a toxic relationship. A toxic relationship is any relationship that is just bad for at least one person in it, and that is, in my opinion, bad for Yaz, and possibly even bad for 13, because if 13 does have these feelings, then it's going to become harder and harder for her too, especially as emotionally repressed as she is. That's going to become harder for her, especially if she notices it's hurting Yaz, because the doctor cares about people. If she notices it's becoming more and more burdensome for Yaz, that's going to cause her problems too, because she's going to know it's her fault. So I think this could be bad for both of them. And I just kind of wanted to do a video on that, talking about, one, how just toxic relationships are bad in general, and why, much like with Martha's relationship with the doctor, I don't think it's a good thing on its own, because toxic relationships are bad. I definitely don't think it's the go-to that some of the LGBTQ community should be pointing to, going, yes, I've been wanting this for so long, when it's, you know, you don't want these examples you have on television of these kind of relationships to be these negative ones like that. Because again, when you look at their relationship, that's not a poster child you want, that kind of toxic relationship, because it's only going to end badly. This relationship is only going to end badly. With only one more special to go, it's not going to end well, I fear. And I don't think that's the thing you should have up going, well, you know, the LGBTQ relationships are really growing in television. Here's an example. That's not the one you want to point out. Point out the one in Praxis. That's done way better. So that's my long discussion on that. I really wanted to have a serious talk about this. It was not easy to get it together, because I wanted to be able to have this conversation, but I didn't want to come across as offensive, and I hope I haven't, because it certainly wasn't my intention. But it felt important to me, and I really did want to discuss it. So if I have offended anyone, I apologize. I haven't meant to. And if you're for Thasmin and you love it, hey, that's, you know, you're entitled to your opinion. I respect that. I think everybody's entitled to their opinions, and everybody should respect other people's opinions. But that's my thoughts on it, and I wanted to share that with you. So I would like to know what you have thought on my take on it, and what you think on everything I've discussed today. So comment down below and let me know, because I do always enjoy hearing from you guys. Other things to do while you're here. If you do watch my content regularly and you do enjoy it and you haven't subscribed yet, I would love if you'd go ahead and click that subscribe button. That really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And plus, I'm just trying to grow the channel. I do eventually want to reach 1,000, maybe preferably by the end of the year if possible, because so many things I want to do with the channel open up when I hit that. It opens all kind of doors, so I'm really looking forward to hitting that milestone. Click the like button if you haven't done that. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me on Patreon. My patrons at the $10 tier and up get an exclusive video every week. I also do early access to some videos. If you want to check that out, there's a link to that down in the description. I have a P.O. box. If there's anything Doctor Who related or sci-fi related or otherwise you would like me to review, that's down in the description, as is a link to my Amazon wish list and my Amazon UK wish list as well. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.